Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's OnBoard limited release webinar for insurers. Before we begin today's presentation, I'd like to ask everyone to please keep your phone lines muted. At the end of the presentation, board and project leadership are on the call to answer as many of your questions as we can. To submit a question, please use the chat feature and send your questions to all panelists. And just a note, later this week, we will be emailing you all with OnBoard limited release resources for insurers, including a recording of this webinar. To begin with today's agenda, I will now turn it over to the board's Communication and Outreach Manager, Pam Barnhart.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us. Today, we'll begin with a condensed OnBoard limited release overview for insurers. We covered this fully during our November webinar series, but in case you missed it, visit the resources page of the OnBoard section of the board's website, where you can view a recording of that webinar and others. Next, we'll walk through the prior authorization request submission and insurer response processes. Based on the questions we received during the November webinar series, we'll be walking through the most frequently asked questions from the insurer community, let you know what's coming up next in the project timeline, and leave plenty of time at the end to answer any additional questions you have today. So let's go ahead and get started with a brief project overview. This multi-year project initially began in the summer of 2019, with the full system being available in 2023. But we identified opportunities to implement some early process improvements and functionality sooner in what we are referring to as OnBoard limited release. OnBoard limited release is tentatively scheduled for release during mid-second quarter of 2021 and will include a new online process for prior approval requests, or PARs, as well as the online submission of Form HP1. No earlier than October 2021, Phase 2 will be available, which includes eClaims EDI 3.1, with the complete OnBoard system being available in 2023. To transition away from paper forms, limited release will move the prior authorization request, or PAR, process completely online and will include the following. The existing MG1 process will be known as confirmation in the new system and will be confirmation that the treatment the provider wishes to deliver is consistent with the medical treatment guidelines. MG2 will be known as variants. Special services, which includes the 12 medical treatment guideline-related requests previously done using the C4 auth, and greater than 1,000 will be used for non-MTG treatments costing more than $1,000. When use of limited release begins, paper form MG1, MG2, and C4 auth will be eliminated. Part of OnBoard limited release will be the introduction of a durable medical equipment, or DME, fee schedule that certain types of DME will require. There will also be PARs for non-MTG treatment costing $1,000 or less, and new medication PARs, as OnBoard limited release will be replacing the current drug formulary prior authorization request process. Similar to the current drug formulary prior auth process, all completed PAR submissions will be transferred to the case folder in eCase for viewing. Submitting a PAR begins with logging into the medical portal to access the OnBoard limited release dashboard. The dashboard serves as a home page in the OnBoard system, where you can sort the information by column to view the status of PAR submissions in progress and submit new PARs. To submit a PAR, healthcare providers or their delegated staff will select Submit an e-form at the top of the dashboard and enter the requested information. The system will automatically detect the type of PAR a provider is attempting to submit based on the information being provided, such as CPT code, MTG site, body part information, and whether the requested treatment is consistent with the medical treatment guidelines. Reference documents can also be attached, such as medical records or progress notes. There will also be the ability to add additional PARs on a single submission. For example, a provider may want to submit PAR requests for lumbar fusion, post-operation physical therapy, and a back brace, which can all be added and requested via a single submission. The only exception is for medication PARs, which need to be submitted as an individual PAR for each medication being requested. The PAR is then submitted to the insurer, and the actual submission needs to be completed by the healthcare provider themselves, not their delegated staff. Insurers will begin their response to PAR submissions by clicking on the PAR ID link for a specific PAR shown in their dashboard. In this example, the PAR selected was for durable medical equipment. A series of items is shown regarding the PAR, including the body part, the associated medical treatment guideline, HCPCS code, and the Level 1 insurer response. The insurer will place in their response. In this example, they will grant and answer the series of questions shown. The insurer provides details denoting whether the claim is apportioned, the amount or percentage covered, the insurer name, and the title of the reviewer. The next step for an insurer would be to upload any supporting documentation needed, such as clinical studies or other medical treatment guidelines, before reviewing and submitting a response to the PAR. Following the November webinars, we received a number of great questions from the insurer community. Let's go over the most frequently asked questions received so far. And just to note, we've developed documents that outline these FAQs that are available on the OnBoard section of our website under Resources. First question here, will the current time periods for insurer response remain the same once the new system is implemented? Yes, all current timeframes for insurer review and response will remain the same as they are today. If an insurer does not respond within the designated timeframe, an order of the chair may be issued. Next question, will an MTG PAR denial only escalate to a Level 2 review if the claimant or claimant's attorney objects to the denial? All Level 1 reviews resulting in a denial or partial grant will require an automatic escalation to a Level 2 review before the response is entered into the system and sent to the healthcare provider. The only exception is a medication PAR, where the healthcare provider will need to manually escalate for a Level 2 review if the Level 1 reviewer does not fully grant the medication PAR. Will OnBoard limited release automatically send PAR status updates to insurers and all parties on a claim, such as claimant, attorney, healthcare provider, insurer, etc.? Insurers will have their own dashboard with a status column that will update PAR submissions. Insurers will also receive email or text notifications that will inform you an update has been made to a PAR status and that attention is needed. Is there a limit to the number of users each insurer can have? No, there is no limit to the number of users each insurer can have an OnBoard limited release. We'll be providing guidance on how insurers can add users during the just-in-time training we'll be providing to you previous to the new system being available. Will a healthcare provider be able to submit multiple treatments or services on one PAR, or will they require a PAR for each type of treatment or service? Each type of treatment or service requires a PAR submission. However, the new system allows for treatment, services, and equipment requests to be added as separate line items on a single submission. The system will convert these into one or more PARs depending on what is being requested. If there are multiple medication items being requested, as mentioned previously, each will get their own individual PAR. But for the other PAR types, line items within the same PAR family will be combined into a single PAR. If an insurer is currently using a pharmacy benefits manager or PBM for drug formulary review, how will the PBM receive medication PAR requests? The insurer will be required to designate a PBM contact who will receive an email or text message notification update for each decision throughout the review process. How can insurers register and when? All online user administrators for the current medical portal and drug formulary system will automatically be granted access to OnBoard limited release in the second quarter of 2021. This will enable administrators to add users to the additional roles that will be required for their organization, as well as add new notification emails. The administrator will use their medical portal or drug formulary login credentials to log into OnBoard limited release. Will an insurer have the option to opt out of the attending doctor's request for optional prior approval in carrier's employer's response, Form MG1, in limited release? No. A confirmation PAR in OnBoard limited release, previously done using Form MG1, will be optional for the healthcare provider to submit. If a healthcare provider submits a confirmation PAR, the insurer's response will be mandatory. For variance PARs, previously Form MG2, are workers' compensation law judges no longer ruling on denials? All requests from a healthcare provider for a Level 3 review of a variance PAR denial will be routed to the board's medical director's office for review, and the injured worker or their attorney may request a hearing using a request for further action by legal counsel, Form RFA 1LC. Will the new system confirm that a healthcare provider's request is or is not consistent with the MTGs? No, the system will not automatically confirm whether treatment is consistent with the medical treatment guidelines. Part of the provider submission includes the provider denoting whether their requested treatment is consistent with an MTG. The insurer needs to review the request and respond whether or not they agree based on the specifics of the claimant's case. The MTG lookup tool, which will be available when OnBoard limited release is implemented, will make it quick and easy to search the MTGs. You can learn more about the MTG lookup tool by searching MTG lookup tool on the board's website. How does OnBoard limited release allow for the submission of a PAR or Form HP1 for a newly injured worker who doesn't yet have a claim or case on file with the board? When performing a case lookup to submit a PAR, after 2 unsuccessful attempts to locate the case, healthcare providers will be able to continue with the request by manually entering known information. It should be noted that if the insurer is not found, the board must review the case for assembly, potentially delaying the authorization process. The system will not allow a Form HP1 to be submitted or accepted if the board has not assigned a WCB case number. How would an insurer request an IME or record review in OnBoard limited release? An IME can be requested as part of either a Level 1 or Level 2 review, and the timeframe for response will be calculated based on the date the IME request was submitted, regardless of whether the IME request was made during a Level 1 or Level 2 review. Will a durable medical equipment or DME fee schedule be included in limited release? Yes, the DME fee schedule will be available when OnBoard limited release is implemented. Some items on the DME fee schedule will require prior authorization and others will not. In addition to the DME fee schedule, other implementations are timing up with the availability of the new system, which we'll discuss here on the next slide. In addition to the DME fee schedule, as we move closer to OnBoard limited release being available, the board has made the decision to time up some other initiatives with OnBoard limited release as well. The deadline for prescription drug refill compliance has shifted to mid-second quarter of 2021 for the drug formulary. And as a reminder, the drug formulary as it currently stands will be replaced with the implementation of OnBoard limited release that will include the medication PAR process. The medical treatment guidelines listed here will also go into effect when the new system is available. There will be new medical treatment guidelines created and used for traumatic brain injury, and there will be revisions made to mid and low back, neck, shoulder, and knee. Training modules will be available on our website for both medical and non-medical professionals once the new and revised MTGs are implemented. The OnBoard webpage has been updated recently with content specific to the insurer audience. I'd like to walk you through where to find these resources and provide a preview on how the website will soon be redesigned to give insurers their own page to find these resources in the future. As I mentioned, the OnBoard webpage has been updated with new resources for insurers. There's a fact sheet highlighting what insurers need to know and a listing of frequently asked questions for the insurer audience. These FAQs will be updated as we move forward. You can also view a history of our recorded presentations and PDF copies of slide decks as well. We encourage you to take a look at these resources and to share them with your colleagues. Updates are coming to the website in the coming month. Specific sections will be devoted for each stakeholder audience, such as a page for insurers, where all materials relevant to you will be located for easy access. Keep an eye out for these updates. Up until OnBoard limited release becomes available, we'll be hosting regular webinars to keep you informed and eventually train you on how to use the new system. Next month, our webinars will focus on the registration progress for access to OnBoard limited release that will be available later that month. We will also walk through updated frequently asked questions based on the questions asked this month. So keep an eye out on your email for those webinar invitations. You've heard me mention training a couple of times and may be curious, how will insurers be trained on using the new system? As we move closer to using limited release, the board will be providing plenty of opportunities to receive updates and training. We'll continue regular webinar sessions like this one. And just prior to OnBoard limited release being available, we'll be delivering just-in-time training webinars to provide you with everything you need to know for day one. Guide materials and video tutorials will be developed, and website content is being continuously refreshed to assist you along the way. To stay in the loop on when training resources and other engagement opportunities are available, we urge everyone to subscribe to receive WCB notifications. If you did not receive the invitation directly to today's webinar, visit wcb.ny.gov/onboard and select the Get Involved and Stay Informed tab to sign up to receive email notifications to stay informed on resources and to register for upcoming webinar and training opportunities. Last but not least, what do insurers need to do now to prepare? You should conduct a review of any current systems and procedures to identify potential impacts. After going live with OnBoard limited release, the board will no longer be using paper for PARs, so please ensure your procedures are in place for day one. We also encourage you to review the OnBoard webpage. The content featured there will provide you with an understanding of the changes associated with OnBoard limited release. That concludes today's presentation, and it looks like we have plenty of time to answer some of your questions. But if you have any questions following this webinar, please email them to onboard@wcb.ny.gov. To stay updated, we encourage you to visit the OnBoard webpage frequently. As I mentioned, this is also where you can subscribe to receive OnBoard news straight to your inbox. These communications will not only feature limited release updates, but we'll be distributing information about the broader OnBoard project as well.
Once again, thank you for participating. If you have any questions, email onboard@wcb.ny.gov and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.